the next thing I want to talk about with this subunit for 3.3 is fraction inequalities. Anytime you're dealing with a fraction, there's a couple ways that you can handle it. If I see that a fraction is to the right of the inequality, I always make two fractions. So what my strategy for you here is to make sure there are fractions on both sides of the inequality. This isn't an equal sign, this is an inequality. Whoa. And then to get rid of a fraction, you just times through by the reciprocal. Okay? So times by recip. That's what we do. That's how we get rid of a fraction. Because if you really think about it, this can look really difficult. If I say divide, this first one here, if I say divide through by 6, what are you dividing through by 6? It looks confusing. So an easier strategy is to turn this into a fraction. And then to get rid of a fraction, you can times through by the reciprocal because it cancels everything out. Do you see? The 6 would cancel, the 1 would cancel. And then according to algebra, if I do something to one side of a inequality or equal sign, then I have to do it to the opposite side. That cancels out and you're left with x is bigger than top times top over bottom times bottom. Okay? Because when you multiply fractions, you go top times top over bottom times bottom. You don't, do it, right. I mean, that would be really awkward to graph, but you can. If they say to graph something like that, I would use the same strategy. Actually, I think that I would do 1 and -1. And then 1/30th is just really small. It's just a really small number. So I just make something by a really small number and go to the right. Gatlin?
Couldn't you just multiply by 5 on the fraction?
But then what are you going to do? Then you're going to be left with 30x is bigger than 1. And then you'd have to divide through by 30. And then x is bigger than 1 over 30. I mean, you can definitely do that, but you have to be careful. I'm going to use that strategy here, though. The strategy that Gatlin was just talking about, where we can get rid of a fraction by multiplying through by that bottom number. Okay, so notice that I use the reciprocal here because the right side was a fraction. So it's super easy for me to deal with two fractions. Okay, -2/3 x is smaller than 6. What should I do first?
Times by 3.
Times by 3. Or reciprocal, you could do both. I'm going to choose the times by 3 here. And you get -2x is less than 18. If it's hard for you to decipher which one to use, reciprocal will never do you wrong. So if you're ever like, I don't know what to do reciprocal. If you ever don't know what to do reciprocal. It will never steer you the wrong way. Now I'm going to divide by a negative. So what do I have to be careful for? Flipping out, right? MD and F. I'm going to divide by a negative, which means I'm going to have to flip the inequality. So x is bigger than a -9. I'm going to choose not to graph that one. Two fractions. So do you think I should do reciprocal, or do you think I should times through by the bottom number? If you're two fractions, I would reciprocate it because it would be really, I mean, how do you times this through by 6? It's kind of hard. You can if it's not hard for you. So I'm gonna times through by the reciprocal, 6 over 5. Then I have to do it both sides. Okay, so everything's canceled out on this side, the left side, and I get x is bigger. Looks like I can cross simplify here. And then I have top times top over bottom times bottom, which is 3/5. X is bigger than 3/5. Okay, Tatiana?
Instead of cross multiply, you just like write it down and then simplify.
Yeah, so you did 6 over 10 and then simplify? Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, did you see that?
What?
So the eraser will go really small and really big and you never know. Okay, so this one, do you think, would you rather do the reciprocal or times through by 7? I would rather do times through by 7. The tricky thing is, how do you know? You don't, you can always use reciprocal if you're not sure. So I'm going to times through by 7. And we get 2x is smaller than 28. Then what?
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2. X is less than 14. I think in my brain, why I decided to times through by 7 first is because there was no fraction right there, so it was easier for me to deal with. Why I thought reciprocal for this one is because I had 2 fractions. Why I did the bottom number on this top right one is because no fraction there. Why I did reciprocal on this one, because there was a fraction. But you can always do the reciprocal. You can always do any strategy. It can just sometimes get difficult. Okay? And that's that for fraction inequalities.